The council chamber stretched wide before Jake Morrison, its ceiling lost somewhere in the artificial twilight above. Dozens of alien species filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from vaguely familiar to utterly bizarre. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others wore environmental suits that hummed and hissed. The air smelled of metal and something else Jake could not name, something that reminded him of ozone after a thunderstorm. Jake stood 3 steps behind Ambassador Helen Grant, his hands clasped behind his back in the formal posture she had taught him. He was here as her assistant, nothing more. His job was to carry files, take notes, and stay quiet. This was his 3rd month working for the diplomatic corps, and he still felt overwhelmed by the sheer strangeness of everything. Helen was speaking now, her voice calm and measured. She was negotiating mining rights for a system near Earth's territory. The deposits of rare minerals there could power human ships for decades. But the Krenth Empire wanted those same resources, and they were not interested in sharing. Commander Zirathal rose from her seat across the chamber floor. She stood over 7 feet tall, her body covered in natural armor plates that gleamed like polished stone. She had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands that looked strong enough to crush steel. Her eyes were dark and cold, positioned on either side of a head that resembled a predatory bird merged with a lizard. "The human speaks nonsense," Zirathal announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "Her kind has been in the stars for barely 15 cycles. They know nothing of galactic law or proper territorial claims. The Krenth Empire has held dominion over that sector for 300 cycles." Helen did not flinch. "With respect, Commander, human explorers charted that system first. Our probes were there 20 years before any Krenth vessel arrived. Under Council law, first discovery grants primary claim." Zirathal's armored plates shifted, making a sound like grinding rocks. It was a sign of anger among her species. "Human probes are toys. They barely qualify as technology. The Council should not honor claims made by such primitive devices." Several alien delegates made sounds that might have been agreement or laughter. Jake felt heat rising in his face. He knew humanity was new to the galactic stage, but hearing their accomplishments dismissed so casually stung worse than he expected. Helen remained composed. "Primitive or not, the law is clear. Earth formally claims that system and the resources within it. We are willing to negotiate reasonable extraction agreements, but we will not surrender our legal right." Zirathal took 3 heavy steps forward. The floor trembled slightly under her weight. "You will not surrender? You have no choice, human. The Krenth Empire takes what it wishes. Your soft species cannot stop us." The chamber fell quiet. What had been a standard negotiation was becoming something else. Jake recognized the shift in atmosphere. He had seen it before in briefings about galactic politics. This was how wars started. Helen stood perfectly still. "The Krenth Empire is bound by Council law the same as Earth. If you take what is ours without consent, you break the peace accords. That would have consequences for your entire empire." Zirathal's laugh was harsh and grating. "Consequences? From humans? Your world has no real military. Your ships are slow and weak. Your soldiers are untested. What consequences could you possibly threaten?" Helen's jaw tightened, the only sign of her anger. "We are not threatening anyone, Commander. We are simply defending what is legally ours." The Krenth commander looked at Helen for a long moment, then her gaze shifted. She looked directly at Jake. He felt the weight of that stare like a physical thing. Those dark eyes studied him with what seemed like contempt. "This one," Zirathal said, gesturing at Jake with one of her 4 arms. "He is your servant, yes?" "Your slave?" Jake's hands clenched behind his back. The word slave hit him like a slap. He was not anyone's slave. He was a free citizen of Earth, a trained engineer, a man who had worked hard to earn his position here. Helen's voice turned cold. "He is my assistant. Humans do not have slaves, Commander. We abolished that practice centuries ago." Zirathal waved dismissively. "Assistant, servant, slave. The words are meaningless. He serves you. He follows you. He is lesser and you are lesser than me. All humans are soft and weak. You evolved on a gentle world with no real predators. You know nothing of true strength." The adjudicator, a being made of living crystal that served as referee for council sessions, spoke for the first time. Its voice echoed like wind chimes. "Commander Zirathal, personal insults violate chamber protocols." "I offer no insult," Zirathal replied. "I offer truth. And I offer this." She turned to face the adjudicator directly. I formally challenge the human delegation to an honor duel. If I win, they surrender all claims to the disputed system. If they win, the Krenth Empire will withdraw. The chamber erupted in sound. Dozens of species began speaking at once, their voices mixing into incomprehensible noise. The adjudicator flashed bright red, demanding silence. Gradually, the chamber quieted. An honor duel is a serious matter, the adjudicator said. Are you certain, Commander? I am certain. The adjudicator turned toward Helen. Does the human delegation accept this challenge? Helen started to speak, but Zirathal cut her off. No, not her. I will not fight the ambassador. She is old and weak, even for a human. It would prove nothing. She pointed again at Jake. I will fight him. The slave. The servant, if he is brave enough to accept. Jake felt his heart hammering in his chest. Every delegate in the chamber was looking at him now. He could feel their stares, their curiosity, their expectations. Most of them probably thought he would refuse. Why would any sane person accept a duel against a trained Krenth warrior? Zirathal had a reputation. She had never lost a fight. She had killed 17 opponents in honor duels. But Jake also understood what was happening here. If he refused, Earth would lose its claim to the mineral system. More than that, humanity would be branded as cowards. Every future negotiation would be harder. Every other species would remember that humans backed down when challenged. Helen turned to look at him. Her expression was carefully neutral, but he saw something in her eyes. She was leaving the choice to him. Whatever he decided, she would support it. Jake took a deep breath. He stepped forward, moving to stand beside Helen rather than behind her. He looked across the chamber floor at Zirathal. I accept your challenge, he said. His voice did not shake, which surprised him. Zirathal's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. Good. You have courage, at least, even if you lack everything else. The duel will take place in 1 hour in the Grand Arena. Prepare yourself, human. You will not survive this, the adjudicator flashed yellow. The challenge is formally accepted. Both parties will have 1 hour to prepare. The duel will proceed under standard rules. First blood, unconsciousness, or submission ends the fight. Lethal force is permitted. No weapons allowed, Jake nodded. His mouth felt dry. What had he just agreed to? Helen touched his arm gently. Come, we need to talk. They left the chamber together, walking through corridors filled with staring aliens. Jake could hear them whispering, though he could not understand their languages. He did not need to. He knew what they were saying. The human was going to die. The preparation chamber was small and quiet, a stark contrast to the enormous council hall they had just left. Jake sat on a bench while Helen paced back and forth, her mind clearly working through strategies and possibilities. Through the transparent wall, Jake could see the grand arena in the distance, a massive dome structure that could hold thousands of spectators. Tell me what you know about Krenth physiology, Helen said. Pulling up holographic displays from her datapad, Jake tried to focus, pushing down the fear that threatened to overwhelm him. They are strong, much stronger than humans. 4 arms give them better reach and grabbing ability. Their exoskeletons protect most of their body. They evolved on a high-gravity world. He paused. Wait, no. That is wrong. Their homeworld has lower gravity than Earth. Helen stopped pacing and looked at him. Exactly. That is the key, Jake. That is what might keep you alive. She expanded the holographic display, showing a detailed comparison between Earth and the Krenth homeworld. Their planet has only 0.7 standard gravity. Earth has 1.0. Do you understand what that means? Jake looked at the numbers, his engineering training kicking in. It means everything on Earth weighs more. We are denser. Stronger for our size? Precisely. The Krenth look impressive because they are large and armored. But you were born and raised in conditions 30% harsher than anything they experience. Every step you take, every movement you make, your muscles are working against higher resistance. You have been strength training your entire life without realizing it. Helen pulled up more data. Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds between 0.6 and 0.8 gravity. Earth is unusually high. There are only a handful of species that developed intelligence on worlds with gravity equal to or higher than ours. This is why many aliens think humans look weak and soft. We do not have armor or natural weapons, but we do not need them. Our bodies are built for a much harsher environment. Jake felt a small spark of hope. So I'm stronger than I look. Much stronger. But that alone will not win this fight. Zirathal still has advantages. She is larger. has more combat experience, and has 4 arms to your 2. You cannot fight her the way she expects. Helen sat down beside him. You need to understand something else about human biology. Something most aliens do not know. She pulled up medical scans showing human internal systems. Humans are persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? Jake nodded slowly. Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Right. And to do that, we evolved several unique traits. Our cardiovascular system is extremely efficient. We can regulate body temperature through sweating, which almost no other species can do. We can run for hours without stopping. Most aliens cannot do this. They overheat, their muscles cramp, they collapse. A Krenth warrior in peak condition can fight at maximum intensity for maybe 10 minutes before needing rest. You could potentially keep going for an hour or more. Helen continued, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining a crucial lesson. But there is something else. Something even more important. Humans have an emergency response system called the adrenaline dump. When you are in danger, your body floods with chemicals that temporarily increase your strength, speed, and pain tolerance. Your perception of time slows down. Your focus sharpens. You become capable of things that seem impossible. Jake had heard of adrenaline before, of course. Stories of mothers lifting cars off trapped children, soldiers performing impossible feats in combat. But he had never experienced it himself. How do I control it? You do not. It happens automatically when your brain perceives a real threat. And trust me, Jake, when you are facing Xerathal in that arena, your body will know you are in danger. Helen put her hand on his shoulder. The key is not to panic when it happens. Your heart will race. Your hands might shake. Everything will feel too intense. But if you can stay calm mentally, if you can think clearly despite the physical response, you will have an edge she does not expect. Helen stood and walked to a clear space in the room. Now let me tell you about Krenth combat style. They rely on strength and intimidation. They use their 4 arms to overwhelm opponents with multiple simultaneous attacks. They expect their enemies to be afraid, to back away, to defend. This is their weakness, she demonstrated as she spoke. If you try to fight at a distance, her reach will destroy you. If you try to match her strength for strength, she will crush you. Your only chance is to get inside her guard. Close where those long arms become a disadvantage. Move fast, hit hard, and target the weak points. What weak points? Jake asked. She is covered in armor. The armor has gaps. It must, or she could not move. Under her arms where they connect to her torso, the back of her knees, her neck, especially the sides. There are nerve clusters there that even armor cannot fully protect. Helen pulled up another diagram. The Krenth nervous system is similar to humans in some ways. Sharp impacts to these nerve clusters can cause temporary paralysis or disorientation. Jake studied the diagrams, committing them to memory. He had trained in mixed martial arts back on Earth, earning a brown belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and spending years studying kickboxing. He was not a professional fighter, but he knew the fundamentals. Leverage, timing, positioning. The principles were universal even when fighting an alien. One more thing, Helen said. She will underestimate you completely. She has already decided you are weak and helpless. She will be overconfident, maybe even careless. Use that. Let her think she is winning right up until the moment you prove her wrong. A chime sounded, indicating they had 30 minutes remaining before the duel. Jake stood and began stretching, loosening his muscles. He tried to empty his mind of fear and doubt. He thought about his training, about the hours spent on the mat learning how to fall, how to move, how to read an opponent. Helen watched him quietly for a moment, then spoke again. Jake, I want you to know something. What you are doing today matters, not just for the mining rights or the territory dispute. You are showing the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Win or lose, you are making a statement. We do not back down. We do not surrender. We fight, Jake met her eyes. I will do my best. I know you will. That is why I chose you for this position. She smiled slightly. I knew there might be challenges like this. I needed someone brave enough to face them. Someone who understood that sometimes defending human dignity means putting yourself at risk. They left the preparation chamber and walked toward the arena. The corridors were crowded now, with aliens making their way to the event. Jake could feel their stares, hear their chittering conversations. Some looked at him with pity, others with morbid curiosity, a few with what might have been respect for accepting the challenge at all. The arena entrance loomed before them, a wide archway filled with bright light. Beyond it, Jake could hear the roar of thousands of spectators. His heart was pounding now. his palms sweating despite the climate control. This was really happening. In a few minutes, he would be fighting for his life against one of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Helen stopped at the entrance. She was not allowed to accompany him onto the arena floor. "Remember everything I told you. Stay calm, stay focused. Move fast, and Jake?" She waited until he looked at her. "Survive. That is an order." Jake managed a small smile. "Yes, ma'am." He walked through the archway into the light, and the roar of the crowd washed over him like a wave. The arena was even larger than it had appeared from outside. Thousands upon thousands of aliens filled the seats, their forms and colors creating a dizzying mosaic. At the center of it all was the fighting platform, a circular space 50 meters across surrounded by shimmering energy barriers. Across the platform, Xerathal was already waiting. She raised all four arms to the crowd, and they responded with thunderous approval. She was their champion, their entertainment, their symbol of Krenth superiority. Jake was just the human who would die to prove it. The adjudicator materialized in the center of the platform, its crystalline body glowing with inner light. Jake walked forward to meet his opponent. Up close, Xerathal looked even more intimidating. She towered over him, her armored body seeming almost indestructible. She looked down at him with those cold, dark eyes. "Any last words, human slave?" Jake looked up at her and spoke clearly. "Just one. Let us begin." The adjudicator's voice rang out clear and cold across the arena. "This is an honor duel under the ancient laws of the Galactic Council. The combatants will fight until first blood, unconsciousness, or submission. Lethal force is permitted. No weapons are allowed. Do both parties understand?" Jake nodded. His mouth was dry, but his mind felt surprisingly clear. Across from him, Xerathal made a gesture with her upper arms that probably meant agreement among her people. "Then let the duel begin." The adjudicator flashed brilliant blue and vanished in a shimmer of light, teleporting to safety beyond the energy barrier. For one heartbeat, everything was still. Jake could see Xerathal watching him, judging him, deciding how to end this fight quickly. The crowd noise faded to a distant roar. His focus narrowed until there was only the platform, the opponent, and the space between them. Then Xerathal moved. She was fast, much faster than something so large should be. She crossed half the distance between them in two enormous strides, her lower arms reaching out to grab while her upper arms pulled back to strike. It was a classic grappling attack, meant to immobilize him while she delivered crushing blows. But Jake was already moving. Everything Helen had told him came rushing back. Do not be where she expects. Use the gravity advantage. Stay close. His body reacted before his conscious mind finished processing the threat. He dropped low and pushed forward, sliding beneath her reaching lower arms. His shoulder passed inches from her armored torso. He felt the wind from her upper right arm as it swung through the space where his head had been a split second before. If that blow had connected, it would have been over instantly. But it did not connect. Jake was already past her guard, rolling to his feet behind her. Xerathal spun with shocking speed, all four arms working to track him. For the first time, Jake saw surprise in those dark eyes. She had not expected him to evade her opening move. No one ever had. She attacked again, this time more carefully. Her forearms worked in coordination, creating a pattern of strikes that covered multiple angles simultaneously. It was the kind of attack that should be impossible to defend against. No two-armed opponent should be able to block or dodge four independent attacks. Jake did not try to block them all. Instead, he watched her body, not her arms. He had learned in martial arts training that you could not fake with your center of gravity. Your core always telegraphed where you were really going. He saw the slight shift in her weight, the tiny rotation of her torso, and knew where the real power strike was coming from. Her upper left arm, swinging in a wide arc meant to break ribs. He stepped into the attack instead of away from it, getting inside the swing before it could generate full force. His forearm came up to redirect the blow past his body. At the same moment, his other hand shot forward in a palm strike to her midsection, right where Helen had shown him the armor plates separated. The impact was solid. He felt the shock run up his arm. Xerathal grunted an almost human sound of surprise and pain. She stumbled back half a step. 10 seconds had passed since the fight began. Jake pressed forward, not giving her time to recover. This was another lesson from his training. If you hurt an opponent, do not wait for them to adapt. Keep pressure on the wound. Keep them reacting instead of acting. He moved inside her guard again, his movements quick and economical. No wasted motion. Every action had a purpose. Zirathal tried to grab him with her lower arms to use her size and strength advantage. Jake let her catch his left arm. He felt her grip tighten like a vice, strong enough that he knew she could break his bones if she wanted. But by letting her catch one arm, he controlled where that arm was, and by controlling where her arm was, he controlled her balance. He pivoted sharply, using his trapped arm as an anchor point. His right hand formed into a rigid strike with the fingers together, shot out and hit the side of her neck. Helen had shown him exactly where to aim, the nerve cluster that ran beneath the armored plates, the spot that could not be fully protected. The effect was immediate. Zirathal's entire left side went slack. Her grip on his arm released. She staggered, her legs not quite responding correctly. Jake pulled away and moved to her weak side, keeping pressure on that damaged nerve path. 20 seconds had passed. The crowd noise had changed. The confident roar had become something else. Uncertainty. Confusion. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. The human was not supposed to be standing, let alone landing effective strikes against a Krenth champion. Zirathal's face twisted with an emotion Jake recognized. It was fear, raw and primal. She had probably never felt it before in combat. Her entire identity was built on being unstoppable, invincible, supreme, and this small, soft human was taking that away from her. She roared, a sound that made the air vibrate. It was not a tactical decision. It was pure rage and desperation. She charged forward with no technique, no strategy, just overwhelming aggression. All four arms reached out, trying to grab, strike, crush anything to stop this impossible situation. It was exactly what Jake had been waiting for. Anger made people stupid. Desperation made them predictable. He had seen it 100 times on the training mat. Someone losing would try one big desperate attack, putting everything into it, and that was when they were most vulnerable. Jake sidestepped, his body moving on instinct and training. He caught her leading arm, the upper right one, and used a judo technique he had practiced 1,000 times. Hip throw using her own momentum against her. But this was not a training mat. This was real combat with real stakes, and his body was pumping adrenaline that gave him strength he did not normally possess. Zirathal left the ground. For a creature that weighed easily 3 times what Jake did, she flew through the air with shocking speed. The throw was perfect. Her body rotated, her back arcing toward the platform floor. She hit hard, the impact echoing across the arena. The energy barrier flickered as it absorbed some of the shock. Jake did not hesitate. Before she could recover, before she could process what had happened, he was on her. His training took over completely. Rear naked choke, the most reliable submission hold in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His arm wrapped around her thick neck, his forearm pressing against one side while his bicep pressed against the other. Not crushing her windpipe, which would just make her panic and fight harder. Instead, cutting off the blood flow to her brain through the carotid arteries. It was a gentle technique in a way. Applied correctly, it caused no permanent damage. The opponent just went to sleep. But it was also absolutely effective. Once it was locked in properly, there was no escape. You either submitted or you went unconscious. Jake felt Zirathal struggle. Even with her left side still partially paralyzed from the nerve strike, she was incredibly strong. Her remaining functioning arms reached back, trying to grab him, trying to pry him off, but he was positioned perfectly. His legs wrapped around her torso to prevent her from standing or rolling. 28 seconds had passed since the adjudicator had said begin. Submit, Jake said quietly. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. He was giving her the choice, giving her the chance to end this with dignity. He did not want to choke her unconscious in front of the entire galaxy. She was a warrior. She deserved better than that. Zirathal struggled for another moment. Jake could feel her movements becoming weaker, less coordinated. The choke was working. In a few more seconds, she would be unconscious whether she wanted to be or not. Her lower right hand, the one on her still functional side, tapped the platform floor twice. The universal signal: submission, surrender, I yield. 30 seconds total. Jake released the choke immediately and rolled away, putting distance between them. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hands were shaking from the adrenaline dump. Every muscle in his body felt electric, alive, hyper-aware. Zirathal lay on the platform for a moment, gasping for air. Then slowly she rolled over and pushed herself to her feet. She looked at Jake with an expression he could not read. Shock, certainly. Humiliation, probably. But also something else. Something that might have been respect. The adjudicator materialized between them, its crystalline form flashing yellow. The duel is concluded. The human fighter has achieved submission victory. By the laws of the Council, the challenge is satisfied. The arena was absolutely silent. 5,000 alien beings sat in stunned disbelief. No one moved. No one spoke. They were trying to process what they had just witnessed. The impossible had happened. A human, considered weak and primitive by most of the galaxy, had defeated a legendary Krenth warrior in single combat. And he had done it in 30 seconds. Jake looked up at the crowd, then at Zirathal, then toward where he knew Helen was watching. He had survived. More than that, he had won. He had defended human dignity and honor. He had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be dismissed or underestimated. His legs felt weak suddenly, the adrenaline starting to fade, but he remained standing straight and tall until the adjudicator directed him to leave the platform. As he walked toward the exit, the silence broke. Someone in the crowd made a sound. Then another, and another. It was not cheering exactly. It was something more complex. Acknowledgement. Recognition. The galaxy had just learned a new fact. Humans were dangerous. Helen was waiting for Jake beyond the arena entrance, her face carefully composed but her eyes showing relief and pride. She said nothing at first, just handed him a bottle of water and a towel. Jake's hands were still shaking as he took them. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind exhaustion and the beginning of soreness in muscles he had pushed beyond their normal limits. "You did well," Helen said quietly as they walked through the corridors back toward the human delegation's quarters. Around them, aliens stopped and stared. Some moved out of their way. Others whispered in their strange languages. The atmosphere had changed completely from an hour ago. Then Jake had been an object of pity or contempt. Now he was something else, something to be wary of. They reached their quarters and sealed the door behind them. Only then did Helen allow herself to smile fully. 30 seconds. The analysts are already calling it the fastest honored duel victory in Council history. You have just become the most famous human in the galaxy. Jake Morrison. Jake sat down heavily on the nearest chair. His body was starting to register all the small injuries from the fight. Bruises forming where Zirathal had grabbed him. Scraped skin on his forearm. Nothing serious, but enough to remind him how close he had come to much worse. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now, everything changes." Helen pulled up her datapad and began scrolling through messages. "I have received formal communications from 17 different species in the last 10 minutes. The Krenth Empire has already withdrawn all territorial claims to the disputed system. They are bound by honor. Zirathal challenged and lost, so the matter is settled." She continued reading, her eyebrows rising. "The Viridian Collective is requesting a trade negotiation. They were previously uninterested in human goods. The Shadar Assembly wants to establish an embassy on Earth. 3 smaller species are asking about defensive alliances, and this is just the beginning. Once word spreads fully, we will be flooded with diplomatic opportunities." Jake listened, trying to process it all. One fight, 30 seconds of combat, and it had shifted humanity's position in galactic politics more than years of careful diplomacy might have achieved. It seemed surreal. A chime sounded at the door. Helen checked the security display and her expression became unreadable. "It is Commander Zirathal. She is requesting to speak with you privately." Jake's first instinct was to refuse, but he remembered how the fight had ended, how he had given her the choice to submit rather than forcing her into unconsciousness. There had been something in her eyes then, something beyond shame or anger. "Let her in." Helen hesitated, then nodded. "I will be right outside if you need me." She opened the door and spoke briefly with someone outside, then left, leaving Jake alone with his former opponent. Zirathal had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. She stood in the center of the room, her forearms held in a position that Jake guessed meant respect or supplication in her culture. Up close, without the adrenaline and fear, he could see details he had missed in the arena. Her armor was not just protective plating but also seemed to have ceremonial engravings. Some of them looked very old. "I came to apologize," she said. Her voice was quieter than in the arena, less certain. "I insulted you. I insulted your entire species. I called you a slave. I believed you were weak and pathetic. I was wrong. Jake did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He just waited. Zirathal continued. I have been a warrior for 32 cycles. I have fought in wars, duels, competitions. I have never been defeated before today. Never even come close to defeat. I believed myself invincible. You taught me the truth in 30 seconds. She moved one of her hands to touch the side of her neck where Jake had struck the nerve cluster. This was skilled, precise. You knew exactly where to hit, exactly how much force to use. And the way you moved, the way you controlled distance and timing. This was not luck. This was training and intelligence. Thank you, Jake said, finding his voice. You are very skilled as well. If you had not underestimated me, the fight would have been much harder. Yes, Zirathal agreed. I underestimated you completely. I will not make that mistake again. None of my people will. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, How? How did a species that looks so fragile become so dangerous? Jake thought about how to answer. We are not fragile. We just look that way to you. Our world has higher gravity than yours. Everything on Earth is heavier, harder to move. Our bodies adapted to that. Every day of our lives we are training in conditions you would find difficult. Zirathal's eyes widened slightly. I did not know this. Higher gravity? How much higher? About 30% higher than your homeworld. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a curse. This explains much. No wonder you were so fast, so strong for your size. You are always fighting against greater resistance. This makes you powerful in ways that are not visible. Yes, Jake said, and there are other differences too. Our biology, our evolution. Humans are persistence hunters. We can keep going long after most species would collapse. We have an emergency response system that temporarily makes us stronger and faster when we are in danger. I felt this, Zirathal said. When you struck me, when you threw me, there was a force beyond what your size suggested. I thought perhaps you had secret augmentation or hidden technology, but it was just your body's natural response to threat. They talked for almost an hour. It was a strange conversation between two warriors who had tried to destroy each other minutes before. But it was also valuable. Zirathal asked questions about human biology, culture, and combat philosophy. Jake asked about Krenth society and learned that honor was everything to them. By defeating her honorably, by giving her the choice to submit rather than being rendered unconscious, he had earned her permanent respect. When she finally left, Jake felt oddly lighter. The fight had not created an enemy. It had created something much more useful: understanding. Over the next few days, the consequences of the duel continued to unfold. The video of the fight spread across the galactic network, viewed by billions. Human diplomats throughout the galaxy reported dramatic shifts in how they were treated. Doors that had been closed were opening. Species that had ignored human requests were suddenly interested in conversation. But there were also concerns. Some military analysts worried that humanity had painted a target on itself. If humans were dangerous, some aggressive species might see them as threats to be eliminated before they became too powerful. Helen dismissed these worries. We were always going to face this choice, she told Jake during a briefing. Stay weak and be ignored or exploited, or show strength and be taken seriously. You cannot have respect without also accepting risk. The Krenth Empire surprised everyone by requesting a formal meeting, not to protest the duel result, but to propose something unexpected: cultural and military exchange programs. They wanted to learn human combat techniques. They wanted to understand human biology and training methods. They were offering to share their own knowledge in return. It was, Helen explained, a massive honor. The Krenth rarely admitted that anyone else had something to teach them. By making this offer, they were acknowledging humans as warrior equals. Jake found himself in yet another negotiating chamber, this time as more than just an assistant. The Krenth delegation included several high-ranking military officers and, surprisingly, Zirathal herself. She had requested to be part of the talks specifically. The negotiations were productive. Within a week, they had outlined the basics of an exchange program. Human martial arts instructors would visit the Krenth homeworld. Krenth warriors would come to Earth to train under Earth's higher gravity. Both sides would share tactical knowledge and military philosophy. But the changes went beyond just the Krenth. 6 other species made formal diplomatic overtures to Earth. 2 offered defensive pacts. 1 proposed a joint research station. Another wanted to establish trade routes. All of them mentioned the duel specifically. They had seen what humans were capable of, and they wanted humanity as an ally rather than an adversary. Jake watched it all unfold with a sense of unreality. He was just an engineer who happened to know some martial arts. He had not set out to change history or shift galactic politics. He had just been trying to survive and defend his dignity. But sometimes, Helen told him, that was enough. Sometimes one person standing up at the right moment in the right place could change everything. The galaxy had believed a lie about humanity because no one had ever challenged it directly. Jake had challenged it. He had proven it false, and now everyone had to reconsider their assumptions. As he lay in bed that night, Jake thought about the 30 seconds that had changed his life. The fear, the adrenaline, the precise moment when he had locked in that chokehold and felt Xerathal tap out. He had survived. More than that, he had won. And in winning, he had opened doors for every human trying to make their way among the stars. Tomorrow, he would wake up to a galaxy that saw humanity differently. It would bring new opportunities and new challenges, but that was fine. If there was one thing humans were good at, it was facing challenges and finding ways to overcome them. The galaxy was beginning to understand that now. 3 months had passed since the duel on Krivos Prime. Jake stood in a conference room at the Human Defense Force headquarters in Geneva, looking out at the city below. It was strange being back on Earth after spending so much time among aliens. Everything seemed smaller somehow, more familiar and comfortable, but also slightly disappointing. The galaxy was so much bigger than this one world. Behind him, a dozen military officers and diplomatic officials were taking their seats. Jake had been promoted twice in 3 months. He was no longer just an assistant. Now he was a special liaison for the newly formed Office of Interspecies Relations. His job was to help other humans understand what he had learned about humanity's place in the galaxy. Director Kate Palmer called the meeting to order. She was a former military officer, sharp and direct. Thank you all for coming. As you know, the situation in galactic politics has shifted dramatically since the Krivos Prime incident. We have opportunities now that were unthinkable 6 months ago, but we also face new challenges. Mr. Morrison is here to brief us on what he has learned from his interactions with multiple alien species. Jake moved to the front of the room, bringing up holographic displays. Public speaking had never been his strength, but he had been doing a lot of it lately. The key thing to understand is that the galaxy had a completely wrong idea about humans. They thought we were weak because we do not have natural armor, claws, venom, or other obvious weapons. They thought we were primitive because our technology is newer than most spacefaring species. But these assumptions were based on incomplete information. He showed a comparison chart of different species and their homeworld conditions. Most intelligent life evolved on worlds with lower gravity than Earth. Between 0.6 and 0.8 standard gravity, Earth is at 1.0, which is unusually high. This means humans are significantly stronger and more durable than we appear. Every movement we make, every step we take, requires more force than it would on most other worlds. One of the military officers spoke up. So we have a natural advantage in physical combat? In some ways, yes. But it is not just about strength. It is about endurance. Jake pulled up data on human cardiovascular systems. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors survived by chasing prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. To do this, we developed several unique biological features. We can regulate body temperature through sweating, which is extremely rare among intelligent species. Our cardiovascular efficiency is exceptional. We can maintain high-intensity activity for hours. He showed video clips from various human athletes. Marathons, ultramarathons, endurance competitions. Most alien species can sprint faster than humans. Many are stronger in short bursts, but almost none can match human stamina. A Krenth warrior in peak condition can fight at maximum intensity for maybe 10 minutes. A trained human can potentially keep going for an hour or more before serious fatigue sets in. Director Palmer leaned forward. This is valuable tactical information, but how does it help us diplomatically? Because it changes how other species see us, Jake explained. Before the duel, humanity was viewed as weak and vulnerable, easy to exploit or ignore. After the duel, we are viewed as dangerous. This has opened diplomatic doors, but it also means we need to be careful. Some species now see us as potential threats. He pulled up intelligence reports. 4 aggressive species have made inquiries about human military capabilities. They are trying to assess whether we pose a danger to their interests. 3 others have proposed alliances specifically because they want human military expertise. Everyone is recalculating their position relative to Earth. A diplomatic officer raised her hand. What do you recommend? Jake thought carefully before answering. We need to be strong but not aggressive. Confident but not arrogant. The mistake Zirathal made was assuming she was invincible. She underestimated me because she could not imagine being defeated. We cannot make the same mistake. Yes, humans have advantages. But we are still newcomers to a galaxy full of species with thousands of years more experience than us. The meeting continued for another hour, covering various aspects of interspecies relations. Jake answered questions about alien psychology, cultural differences, and potential pitfalls in negotiations. It was exhausting but important work. After the meeting ended, Director Palmer asked Jake to stay behind. You have done exceptional work, she said. The Council wants to expand your role. We are establishing permanent liaison positions with 6 major species. You would be heading the human side of these exchanges. That is a significant responsibility, Jake said. It is, but you have proven you can handle pressure. You have also shown something equally important. You understand that representing humanity is not about proving we are better than everyone else. It is about proving we belong among the stars. She handed him a datapad. Take a look at this proposal. It is a joint training facility, combining human and Krenth military doctrine. If we can make this work, it could become a model for broader cooperation. Jake read through the proposal. It was ambitious. Human martial arts instructors and military tacticians would work alongside Krenth warriors, sharing techniques and philosophy. Both sides would learn from each other. The facility would be built on a neutral world with adjustable gravity, allowing both species to train under optimal conditions. When would this start? He asked. 6 months if we approve it. You would be the senior human representative. Your counterpart would be Commander Zirathal. Jake looked up in surprise. She agreed to this? She requested it specifically. She said, and I quote, "The human Jake Morrison taught me that true strength comes from recognizing weakness and adapting. I wish to learn more from his species." End quote. Palmer smiled slightly. You made quite an impression. Over the next few weeks, Jake traveled between Earth and various alien worlds, setting up the framework for the new programs. He met with diplomats, military officials, and cultural representatives from dozens of species. Each meeting taught him something new about the galaxy and humanity's place in it. He learned that the Viridian Collective, a species of telepathic plant-based beings, found human emotional complexity fascinating. They wanted to establish cultural exchange programs just to study how humans thought and felt. He learned that the Quarren, a species of aquatic traders, saw humans as potential partners in expanding their commercial network. Human adaptability and willingness to work in hostile environments made them valuable assets. He learned that the Shektar, a warrior culture even more martial than the Krenth, viewed humans with cautious respect. They called humans the gravity dancers, because of how easily humans moved in conditions other species found crushing. But perhaps most importantly, Jake learned that humanity's greatest strength was not physical at all. It was psychological. Humans did not give up. When knocked down, they got back up. When told something was impossible, they tried anyway. This persistence, this refusal to accept defeat was rare in the galaxy. Most species had limits they accepted. Humans seemed to believe there were no limits, only challenges to overcome. Jake tried to explain this during a presentation at the Council headquarters. Human history is full of impossible achievements. We split the atom. We went to the moon with computers less powerful than modern toys. We eradicated diseases that killed millions. We did these things not because they were easy, but because we refused to accept that they were impossible. The alien delegates listened with varying degrees of understanding. Some species thought this sounded like arrogance or delusion. Others recognized it as a powerful survival trait. A few seemed almost frightened by the implications. A species that never truly accepted defeat could be very dangerous or very valuable, depending on whether they were enemies or allies. One evening, Jake received a personal message from Zirathal. She was on Earth for preliminary meetings about the joint training facility. She asked if they could meet informally, away from official business. They met in a park in Geneva, an odd sight that drew stares from human passers-by. A 7-foot-tall, 4-armed alien walking beside a normal-looking man. But Jake had gotten used to odd situations. "I wanted to thank you," Zirathal said as they walked. "Before our duel, I believed I knew everything about combat. I believed my way was the only way. You showed me I was wrong. Since then, I have studied human martial arts. The concepts are so different from Krenth doctrine. You fight not with maximum force, but with minimum necessary force. You use leverage, timing, psychology. It is elegant. Your people's methods are effective too," Jake said. "Overwhelming strength and aggression work when you have the physical advantage. Humans develop different techniques because we usually did not have that advantage. We had to be smart to survive." "This is what I am learning," Zirathal said. "Strength is not just about muscle or armor. It is about adaptation. Your species adapted to a harsh world, and that adaptation made you powerful in ways that are not obvious. I want the Krenth to learn this lesson." They talked about the upcoming training program, about their hopes for what it could achieve. Zirathal admitted that many in her empire were opposed to learning from humans. They saw it as shameful to admit that a younger species had anything to teach them. But the forward-thinking, the shuttle approached the Confederation station slowly, following the precise trajectory provided by traffic control. Jake pressed his face close to the viewport, watching the massive structure grow larger. The station was built in the shape of a spinning wheel, generating artificial gravity through rotation. Docking ports studded the central hub like the spokes of an actual wheel, each one capable of handling ships from dozens of different species. This was his new assignment. The Confederation of Free Worlds, an alliance of 17 species, had requested a permanent human liaison. They wanted to understand humanity better, to build stronger ties with Earth. It was the kind of opportunity that could define the next century of human-alien relations. Helen sat beside him, reviewing documents on her datapad. She would be staying only a few days to help with the transition, then returning to Earth. Jake would be on his own here, representing all of humanity to species he had never even heard of 6 months ago. "Nervous?" Helen asked without looking up. "Terrified," Jake admitted. "Good. Confidence is important, but so is healthy fear. It keeps you careful." She finally looked at him. "You have grown a lot in the past few months, Jake. You are ready for this." The shuttle docked with a soft clang. Jake gathered his belongings, which were surprisingly few. He had learned to travel light. Most of what he needed was information, stored digitally accessible anywhere in the galaxy with proper network access. The docking tube opened onto a wide concourse filled with beings from a dozen different worlds. Jake saw the familiar armored forms of Krenth traders, a group of crystalline adjudicators moving in perfect synchronized steps. Tall, thin beings that looked like they were made of smoke contained in environmental suits. Short, stout creatures with 6 legs and faces covered in sensory tendrils, and dozens of others he could not identify. A welcoming committee waited at the designated meeting point. The leader was a being Jake recognized from briefing files, Ambassador Nira Chen, representing the Torvan people. She was humanoid, which made communication easier, though her skin had a faint blue tint, and her eyes were solid silver without visible pupils. "Welcome to Harmony Station," she said, her voice melodic and pleasant. "We have been looking forward to your arrival. The stories of your duel have spread far beyond Kravos Prime. You have become something of a legend." Jake felt his face flush. "I was just defending my people's honor. Any human would have done the same." "Perhaps," Nira said, "but you were the one who did it. Intent and result both matter. Please follow me. I will show you to your quarters and then give you a tour of the station." The quarters assigned to the human liaison were spacious and comfortable, with adjustable gravity to match Earth standard. Jake was grateful for that. He had spent time on low-gravity worlds and found them uncomfortable. Everything felt wrong when you weighed too little. The tour took 3 hours. Harmony Station was enormous, home to over 50,000 permanent residents and countless more temporary visitors. It had districts for different species, each with appropriate environmental controls. Markets where goods from across the galaxy were traded, entertainment venues, educational facilities, medical centers capable of treating dozens of different biologies. But what impressed Jake most were the collaboration zones, areas specifically designed to bring different species together to work on joint projects. Scientific research, cultural exchange, artistic cooperation. The Confederation believed that mixing species and ideas created innovation. Harmony Station was physical proof of that philosophy. "This is where you will spend much of your time," Nira explained as they entered a large conference complex. "Representatives from all 17 Confederation members meet here regularly to discuss mutual concerns and opportunities. As the human liaison, you will attend these meetings and speak for Earth's interests." "That is a heavy responsibility," Jake said. "I am not even a trained diplomat." "No, but you understand something many trained diplomats do not. You understand that respect must be earned through action, not words. You proved that in the arena." Nira led him to a smaller meeting room. "We have arranged for you to meet some of the other liaisons informally before the official sessions begin. They are curious about you." Over the next few days, Jake met representatives from species he had only read about. The Kalesh, crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns. The Vreen, pack-minded creatures who made all decisions collectively. The Dantari, ancient traders who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before humans discovered fire. Each meeting was a learning experience. Jake realized quickly that his role was not just to represent human interests, but to help these species understand what humanity was. Most of them knew almost nothing about Earth or its people. Their knowledge came from brief reports or wild rumors. He spent hours explaining human biology, culture, and history. Why humans looked weak but were actually tough. Why human emotions were so intense and changeable. Why humans formed such strong bonds with individuals rather than thinking collectively like some species did. The Kalesh found human emotional expression fascinating and disturbing. They experienced feelings too, but much more slowly, over periods of days or weeks rather than moments. The rapid shifts in human mood seemed almost like madness to them. The Vreen could not understand human individualism. They made decisions as a group, always reaching consensus. The idea that a single human could act against the wishes of their community seemed wrong and dangerous. The Dantari, oldest and perhaps wisest of the Confederation species, simply watched and listened. Their representative, an elder named Court, spoke rarely but always with insight. "Your species is young," Court said during one meeting. "But you have something that many older species have lost. You still believe you can change the galaxy. Most of us have accepted our place, our limitations. You humans have not yet learned to accept limits. This makes you dangerous and valuable in equal measure." Jake thought about that observation for a long time. Was it true? Did humans really believe they could change everything? Perhaps. Human. History was full of people who refused to accept the world as it was and fought to make it better. Sometimes they succeeded. Sometimes they failed spectacularly. But they always tried. 2 weeks into his assignment, Jake received word that Earth had finalized the agreement with the Krenth Empire. The joint training facility would be built on a neutral world called Meridian. Construction would begin in 3 months. Zirathal had been appointed as the Krenth commander for the project. Jake would be expected to help coordinate from the human side. But there was other news too. 5 more species had approached Earth about establishing formal diplomatic relations. Human ships were being contracted to carry cargo to worlds that previously used only alien transport. Human engineers were being hired to work on projects across the galaxy. The floodgates had opened. Helen sent him a personal message. "You started something that is growing faster than anyone expected. Be careful, Jake. Success brings attention, and not all attention is friendly. Watch for species that see human advancement as a threat." Jake knew she was right. The galaxy was not uniformly welcoming. Some species resented humanity's rapid rise in status. Others saw humans as potential rivals for resources or influence. There had already been incidents. A human merchant ship harassed by pirates. A human research team denied access to a joint project without clear explanation. Nothing major yet, but warning signs. During a Confederation meeting, Jake raised these concerns. "Humanity appreciates the opportunities we have been given, But we are also aware that some view our presence negatively. We want to be good neighbors and partners, but we will not accept being targeted or discriminated against. Ambassador Court spoke up. This is natural. Every species that rises in prominence faces resistance from those who feel threatened. The question is how you respond. Do you become aggressive and prove their fears justified? Or do you remain steady, demonstrate your value and turn opponents into allies? We want the second option, Jake said, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Of course, Court agreed. No one expects humans to be victims. Your performance against Commander Zirathal proved you are capable of defending yourselves. But there is a difference between defense and aggression. Find that line and stay on the correct side of it. The meeting ended and Jake returned to his quarters feeling exhausted. This job was harder than fighting in an arena. At least there the rules were clear and the objective simple. Here, every word mattered. Every decision had consequences that rippled outward in ways he could not always predict. He received a call from Earth. It was his younger brother Danny, still living in their hometown in California. They had not spoken much since Jake left for the diplomatic corps. "Hey, big brother," Danny said, grinning on the video screen. "Saw you on the news again. They are calling you the human who defeated an alien champion. Pretty cool." Jake laughed. It felt good to talk to someone who knew him before all this started. "It is not as glamorous as it sounds. Mostly I sit in meetings and try not to say anything stupid. Still, you are out there representing all of us. That has to feel pretty amazing." "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "Other times it is overwhelming. I keep thinking about how every decision I make affects